Hey everybody, what's up? It's Booksy. I am going to do my best to keep this a short update for Monday, December 6th for AMC. So, a lot of little things to talk about today. The big one being that we formed an R1 fractal, which is our fractal, our big fractal. And we even saw the final sell-off at the end of the day, which led to this dip right here. This is a 1, 2, 3, which is normal for the 1, 2, 3 before. And again, it actually hit the 618. We talked about this in the previous video. If you haven't watched the big long video, it's probably the second most important video I've made so far. If I were skipping around, I would watch the biggest one. I would watch, well, maybe the third most important. There's the big one, which is, hey, I'm mapping the fractal. There's the other one, which is about the macro, which is kind of changing a little bit. And then this is the third biggest one, which is the update on the macro and all the other stuff. And basically, it's all kind of coming together. I know it's long, but it demands it. Like, it's just such a dense topic. And we have reason to believe, I think, that we're coming close to a time when we can make this more of a predictive model. And that to me is very exciting. So I hope you check it out. Basically, what I wanted to mention, and the reason that I was saying that is because the 618, we learned that through some investigation that the 618 is actually the touch point. It comes back and it touches it, and it always touches it from an R1 perspective. But the bottom, so if you draw the bottom, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little scatterbrained there for a second. If you draw the bottom at the base of the T1, okay, then you look at the R1s, they always come back to touch the 618. And on the macro, our 618 is like 24.47 or something, and it's basically 24.5. And we kind of got very close there on Friday. I think that's the reason it was iterating so much, trying to get down as far as it could go. All right, we established a few other, key spots here in terms of like trend lines, but I just also want to say that, when we started off the day, my expectation was that these head and shoulders were going to continue to iterate, and they did. I think that if you look at it, definitely if you split it here, each of these is like a head and shoulder. If you just drew these levels across, you could see even right here, this is what I would consider to be one right here, comparable to this one, and then it moved us up to the next level, which probably, I haven't drawn it yet, probably is, yeah, right around this region. And it pulled back to the 236, which probably not coincidentally is right on this previous support. Right? This is kind of how stocks work, right? When they're algorithmic, they're going to hit these key supports. And then it's also psychological. Like, other people are looking at these key supports. So a lot of times, if you see it pinned or something, this to me is very algorithmic, not normal. But just because it bounces off a line, it doesn't mean it's always going to be the algorithm. I mean, I think the algorithm knows, but so this is right now, a lot of people are talking about the SPY and how there's a certain kind of pattern on the SPY and it just got rejected, and this is a widening channel. And I get all that, I do. And I think that it's very possible, always possible, that we break from what we expect on the fractal. And the fractal always follows, the microfractals always follow the macrofractals, right? So if this is it and we're done with the move, which, I mean, it's not completely impossible, right? Then maybe this cell that we have is this cell right here. Maybe it's compressed, and that's not really such a bad thing after all. I don't want to go down to these levels, but if we did, and we hit that, then that means that we're starting the t-test, and I would be like elated, right? Good, let's get out of here. If that's the t-test that we need to get us rocketing through here, let's do it. So that's one possibility. There are other possibilities though, and I wanted to point out that I don't see a head and shoulder on this yet, so it's hard to say. I know after hours it kind of did some wiggly stuff, but we'll have to wait until morning to check out more. But you know, we talked about this level and this level on the macro. Okay, so let me come back over here. Oh boy. TradingView always does this when I record. It's in the app and everything, so there's no excuse. All right, I know it's the same time. So this is way up close to this move right here. But we're going to look at it a little further back just to get some perspective here. All right, so this is you see how I think we're kind of still pretty far off from that 618, whereas this has already hit it. So debatable. When this hits, you know, we talked about it respecting these different levels. In this case, the levels it could respect are right here, and that would be this green line right here, which I believe is I always forget which one that is. Yeah, the 5. It's the easiest one to remember. The 5 and the 382. The 5 and the 382 are kind of stepping stones back up to this trend line. In our case, the 5 and the 382 are stepping stones back up to this trend line. So I don't find that to be a coincidence. I think there are no coincidences like that in stocks. So the fact that this could give us a good indication, possibly, of how we might see these navigate these channels is very exciting. That's only if this continues up. So if you get the head and shoulder, right, and then you get that head and shoulder, we see it play out, and then maybe it comes down and tests here, and then it runs. What would that look like? Well, it would look like, I don't want to be too speculative. People hate it when you make, you know, bad speculation, but it might look like this before a run. Okay, and this would be your head and shoulder, it'd be really tiny. Then your t-test, and then your R1, and then maybe it runs. If that happens, then my expectation, again, this is the same thing, is that this is actually a shoulder, and that we see it. It's not going to run up like this, where it's just going to keep going. That's really unlikely. Okay, if it happened, I'd be like overjoyed, but to me, it's pretty unlikely that that would be the case. What's more likely is that we find resistance at that $31, which would be like right here. And then from 31, all right, from 31, maybe we come back and retest the top here. And then the question from there is, if we're looking at it from this point of view, is that now the head? Because it did come up higher than the shoulder. So if that happens and we come back down and then we form a shoulder, then we're talking about maybe walking down back to this region, or at least to this level right here, which is right around 27.37. So the head and shoulder would at least lead us back to here. You see, this is where it starts. I think that's a fair assumption, or it would come back maybe to 786 right at 28. So that's what I'm thinking about for tomorrow. If this is an accumulation, a reaccumulation, just like the macro, which we just saw, then my expectation is that it's actually going to pump and go upward, not just going to crash. If it did crash, it's still possible that this is still the shoulder. You see, because it could come down here and bounce and continue upward. I don't know. You know, I don't think that this would have happened this way with this reaccumulation underneath this trend line if this weren't going to continue up. I know a lot of people are talking about downside because of this widening channel, but again, consider it's kind of win-win either way for us tomorrow, because if it goes down, then so what? Like, what are we're not afraid, because if it goes down, that means that we're going to go back to our t-tests, and I won't be able to show you on this. That's here, okay? This is where we would be. Okay, I can show you. So right here, okay, this would be the down action. So it's very possible that at this current point in time, if you look at this widening channel and this widening channel, that we're really just knocking on the door, and that we knocked once right here, see that? And we're going to come and knock again. It's also possible that this right here, you see this little M? it's very possible that that's this, okay? That this right here, this action is this. So it comes up, settles on the bottom, comes up, settles on the bottom, runs up, you get the little M shape, okay, and then we move. So this pullback then would make sense in that context. If, however, you look at it more like, well, this is this, and we just rejected, then I think you could make the case that perhaps we're not going to see upside again. But if that were the case, I'd be pretty confused. Like, what happened to the head and shoulder? Is that these right here? You know, I don't know. Is it this big thing? Like, that doesn't really make sense. It's not part of this, you know. And I know this is an ugly head and shoulder, but if you look closely, you see it really clearly. All right. And on other ones of these, it's even more clear. Right here. I mean, it's always always very clear when it happens. Well, I don't say it's always, but it's often very clear when it happens. That was a t-test, by the way. That was a bad example. Anyways, I'm not gonna. This might be one. I'm not gonna go on any longer. I really am just looking to see if this breaks up or down in the morning, and then I'll adjust from there. And I'm just happy that we saw this fractal play out, and it's doing what we're expecting it to do. And the fact that we're having this conversation now about hitting these specific levels after this test and that and whatever, that to me is like a huge deal. Like, I feel so fortunate that I'm getting to have these conversations now. Like, that the work that we're putting into this is paying off. Because it just feels right, you know, like it feels like good to be having this kind of talk with you all about this, and to have this much like understanding of what the prax action is probably going to do, even if we don't, you know, it doesn't do what we expect it to do. Like, it's still really cool that we're having this conversation, and I just find it to be, I don't know, I guess I'm being sappy. So I'll just say good night. Have a good one.